Okay, today we're going to learn about some very important halachos pertaining to Shabbos. Before we begin with the new material, just wanted to point out that we forgot to learn something yesterday on the actual page of the Shulchan Aruch. That was the Magen Avraham. The Magen Avraham in Beis says that if a person could only has two sudas, if he could be able to afford two meals on Shabbos, he should not collect money for the third meal on Shabbos. Important point by the Magen Avraham. The next
Hmm.
Magen Avraham says loivin beribis, that the person is actually allowed to take a loan even with interest for Shabbos or for any mitzvah, for any meal, for any suda that is a mitzvah. So we're
So
going
you
to
can buy
see
he
what
can
that,
borrow from a goy? Is
yeah,
that is that
we're gonna discuss. The Magen Avraham doesn't mention it, the exact details of this ribbis. So stay tuned. I think we're actually going to get to that yesterday. The Magen Avraham in Gimel points out that we do not do laundry on Erev Shabbos. Kloimer shel yikapsu Erev Shabbos yepenuyim lekavod Shabbos, and that is that a person will be able to focus on all of the activities on Shabbos itself, and therefore the laundry should not be performed on Erev Shabbos. We're going to learn what's the bottom line halacha with that. Just to focus on one point, this is Chazara, a brief review from yesterday. Yesterday, the Magen Avraham over here discussed that if there's price gouging on the fish, so you should enact that no one should purchase fish. The Machasisa Shekel over here quotes the Semach Sedek, who asked the question, "What do you mean? What's the problem over there?" Because all of our income is predetermined what we will make during the year from the time of Rosh Hashanah, except for expenses towards mitzvahs. And Shabbos is one example, and we're going to see all the details of that as we continue learning. So therefore, who cares if the price gouging, whatever we put in, we're going to get dividends back, we're going to get repaid. Machas Sisa Shekel answers that nevertheless, Tosfos says that which the Gemara says, Loive alayva ani poreya, Hashem says, so to say, borrow on me and I will repay it. You're only allowed to borrow when you're actually able to repay it at a later time. However, if someone is unable to repay a loan and he knows that before taking the loan, he should not take the loan. And on that, Rabbi Akiva comments, it says, Aseh shabasecha chol v'ated sarach b'brios. Bring your Shabbos lavishness down a notch or two. Make your Shabbos like weekday, your expenses, aka not overspending, and so you won't need to come on to people. So he says, and this is the key line that I think we might have skipped over yesterday, Im kein misha shah dechukalo. Therefore, someone who is financially pressed, yechado meliknois dogim kishahu beyoser. So therefore, he should refrain from buying fish when it is very expensive. In other words, over here is that yes, granted, you will get repaid because you have money and the high fish prices don't affect you. On the contrary, it'll be better for you because now you're going to be spending more for Shabbos and whatever you put in, you're going to get back. But think about the general population. If the prices are too high, they're going to be able to unafford it. They're not going to be able to afford it. Then they're going to have to notch down their Shabbos, make it more week-like, have less of a lavish meal, and it's going to negatively affect them because they're not going to be able to borrow because they're not going to be able to repay it. Then they won't be able to invest in Shabbos and they won't get it back. So it's going to be a lose-lose. So think about everyone else. That's another way of explaining this Machas is a shekel. Just wanted to review that when I went through this and typed up all of the notes to summarize everything that we learned. I thought about this and I just said that it will be presented better if it was that way. So I just wanted to get clarity on that to simplify it. Going straight in, the Aruch Hashulchan over here has a tremendous amount of length on this first simon. As you can see already, he has 40 sifim over here, or osios. And in the beginning, he's basically just giving a tremendous amount of introduction to Hilchos Shabbos in general, Davar Shein Miskabim, Psik Reisha, Makalka, all of these sorts of halachos when it comes to Shabbos. He's going into everything. But that really doesn't apply for us. What applies for us is towards the end when he wraps it up over here. And he says like this, that the Torah gave a bracha, right? We're blessed over here and sanctified Shabbos. Therefore, there's an obligation placed upon everyone to honor Shabbos. All right, like the Navi says. Now he quotes the Rambam, who says over here that there were four. Okay, now there were a few statements said about Shabbos. Four, two are in the Torah and two are in Nach. Okay, Zachar and Shamar. Okay, this is a very important. You could even put this as an introductory to Hilchos Shabbos. Zachar v'Shamar means that there are positive mitzvahs of Shabbos and there are negative mitzvahs of Shabbos. Zachar refers to the positive, the active mitzvahs of Shabbos. Okay, so what was explained by the Nevi'im? The Nevi'im, so that's in Chumash. The Nevi'im said that there's something called kavod and Oneg Shabbos. What exactly is the difference between honoring Shabbos and Oneg? The way of translating would probably be making a pleasure for Shabbos. Right, pleasurable Shabbos. What's the difference between the two practically? So he has said Ezehu kavod. What's considered kavod? This is him quoting the Rambam. That's the Chachamim said that there's a mitzvah to take a bath or a shower eriv Shabbos. That's an honor of Shabbos, right? To sit and anticipate when Shabbos is gonna come along, and come out to greet them. And that's what we do. And then he goes into that's what we do. We do lechadodi, we do other mizmorim and Kabbalah Shabbos. That's all kavod Shabbos. In other words, kavod Shabbos is everything before Shabbos. Oneg Shabbos is going to be everything on Shabbos itself. By the way, an excellent story that I once heard about how Shabbos pays back. This should really be in the introductory recording. I just thought about it recently, and I'm like, we should have included this. There's a story of basically a fella who was stranded in traffic and he was unable to get to his destination for Shabbos. He stayed in a hotel. He didn't have any money. He had like nothing with him, and he went to like a bowling alley next door. He's like, "Can I borrow $100 for a room, a couple hundred, whatever? I'll pay you back like after. I don't have the money right now, but I could pay you back after, whatever." They're like, "Who is this weirdo? Like, what's going on?" And they didn't give him the money. So he went to the hotel. He's like, "Can I just like sit in the lobby? Like, I really just don't have a place to be." They were nice. They like let him sit in the lobby. Long story short, like a couple hours later, they come up to the fellow. They're like, "You could go up to your room. It's already paid for." Afterwards, it was found out that it was the person at the bowling alley, because one person at the alley said to the other person, "Oh, this weirdo came asking that I thing and pay him back. What is the guy crazy with him?" He said, "No, that must be a Jew. He was probably stranded. The storm, the traffic, the tree that fell down in the middle of the highway." The idea is that what you take care of Shabbos, Shabbos takes care of you. Anyways, more to story. So this is the kavod Shabbos over here. Okay, that's it. Yeah.
You have to enter Shabbos a kavod rosh.
Kavod rosh with seriousness.
Seriousness,
Correct.
You think Kabbalah Shabbos,
No.
sing.
No. It's a seriousness. Okay? So it's a seriousness. Kavod is everything that has to do with Erev Shabbos. Moving right along. In the Aruch Hashulchan over here. Okay, so this is the idea. He goes into the whole lechadodi thing and the boichala. We already know all that. Now he says kavod Shabbos. You wear nice clothing. Again, everything before Shabbos. Our clothing is different that we wear before Shabbos than the clothing that we wear on Shabbos. Okay, so kavod Shabbos is everything before, and he says that nowadays that what we do, we change our clothing. We have nicer clothing for Shabbos. So this is the idea. This is kavod Shabbos, mikvah before Shabbos. All of this is kavod Shabbos. So in a nutshell, someone asks you, what is kavod Shabbos? Everything that we do before Shabbos. Comes along the Aruch Hashulchan quoting the Rambam, what is Oneg Shabbos? That already is a nice dish for Shabbos, nice drinks. So Oneg Shabbos is everything on Shabbos, in other words. Okay, and he goes into that. The more one spends for Shabbos, the better, etc. And he goes into that one should be spending for Shabbos according to his financial abilities. Okay, so this is the difference between kavod Shabbos and Oneg Shabbos. Kavod everything before, Oneg Shabbos everything is on Shabbos. Aruch Hashulchan says another important point that a person, the rabbis talk about. He says, he's quoting the Rambam over here, that you should have a tavshil shamin, a nice, fatty, expensive dish. He says, Shaman B'Yosef loy nimsa, we don't find that. The Gemara in Shabbos and Kuf Yirches says, how should you be ma'aneg Shabbos, demonstrate pleasure for Shabbos? Tavshil shel trodin. It's a dish made out of beets, made out of big fish, the heads of garlic. So the Aruch Hashulchan explains, when the Rambam says you should have an expensive dish, he didn't necessarily mean that. Right? It's lav dafka. And also when we're talking about fish, if you don't like fish, you don't have to have the fish. The idea is have a dish that you like the most. And this is everyone according to their ability. The Gemara said that's what the dishes that they used to have in their day and age. But everyone should have the dish that they like the most. And this is a crucial Aruch Hashulchan over here, and crucial point. Do not eat what you don't like. Shabbos is about enjoying. So make sure you eat what you like and you enjoy it. So that's how the Aruch Hashulchan reconciles the difference between what the Rambam says over here, of that it should be a nice expensive, fatty type of dish, whereas the Gemara doesn't mention that. The answer is whatever is going on in your in the time. Okay, that was the Aruch Hashulchan. I spent some time yesterday going through the Caf Hachaim truth as I did it last eriv Shabbos, but digitally I spent time going through this and highlighting what I thought were the major points that the Caf Hachaim pointed out over here that we have not seen up until this time. And a lot of these points the Mishnah Berurah is not going to quote. We're going to start the Mishnah Berurah tomorrow, Mirza Hashem. Point number one, which we already know this is old news for us. Obligated in Oneg Shabbos. Why is this old news? Because we know that women are obligated in all of halachos Shabbos. It's time bound, and we know mitzvah sasher shehazman gram anashim peturus. Why then are they obligated? Simple. The Gemara in Brachos Taf Chaf. Zachar and Shomer. Kol sheyishnu b'shmira yishnu b'zachir v'haninash yehol v'yishnu b'shmira. The Gemara says, anyone who's obligated on all of the negative commandments of Shabbos, what you can't do is obligated in all the active, the positive mitzvahs. So women, since they're obligated in the passive, they're also obligated in the active. That's why women have to be involved with Oneg Shabbos and enjoying the food, etc. That is the point over there. Now, another point over here, he has a lot of length over here quoting the Zohar and in Syriac Aramaic, and he basically says at the end that since we see that the table is very special and there are angels over there, be careful not to put something bad on the table. That's not where diapers go, etc. Don't put that stuff on the table. The table is like a mizbeach, and therefore you also want to be generous with the portions that you're putting out. It seems like that's what he seems to be saying. Put it out generously. Even if you're by yourself, this could be the source for why there's always leftovers on Shabbos. Generous, always having extra. You never want to run out of food. Talk to any caterer, they'll tell you that. You never are allowed to run out of food. That's rule number one. Okay, so that's the idea over here. Now, over here, this is a nice point over here in Osei. Even though even though that eating and drinking on Shabbos is a very special mitzvah, you need to be careful not to eat too much. And the Magen Misharim relates this that the Malach spoke to Rabbi Yosef Cairo and said not to overindulge over there. Okay? There's a machlokas in Ozvav if the three Shabbos are from the Torah, midaraisa, or it's an asmachta, it's just based on psukim. From the Lush, it's implied it's from the Torah. The Eli Rabbah says that it is rabbinic in nature, midarabanan, and we're going to learn more about that. I think the Mishnah Berurah is also going to talk about that if I'm not mistaken. In O's test, he comes along and he says that, look, you have to make a personal cheshbon of your eating habits. If during the week you eat one dish, Shabbos you have to have two. If during the week you eat two dishes, on Shabbos you have to have three, etc., etc. You always have to one up your eating habits from during the week on Shabbos and always have something extra qualitatively and quantitatively. Additionally, we learn when we learn halachos Rosh Chodesh, if Rosh Chodesh falls out on Shabbos, you have to double up it because it's in honor of Rosh Chodesh. This is like a lot of very important miscellaneous points over here, and this is basically the idea over here. Okay, the next one. Fish. Do you need to eat fish?
Wait, so what's better if you balchashis or like if you have if you have too many leftovers, if there's an issue with
so it's he's David's the question master. I mean, it's like salt. You don't want to have too little, but you don't want to have too much, like the Gemara in Brachos talks about, right? It's right. So it's the same exact idea over here. You gotta know yourself and make a cheshbon, know your family, and you gotta know what you eat, and then make sure there's a little extra, but not too much. Okay. Now there's a machloikes. For sure, if you don't like fish, you don't have to. The question is if you do like fish. So me'ikar hadin, do you need to have the fish or not? So it seems like what we've been learning until now, you need to have it. However, in the Shar Kavanos, that's the Arizal, he doesn't mention that you have to have the fish, and it's implied that the Arizal didn't have it. However, the Pri Eitz Chaim and other Kabbalah Sefer says that you do need to have the fish for all three Sudas. We'll go through some more significance about the fish over there. Okay, so that is the story with the fish. Now, regarding to the price gouging, if they jacked up the price of fish, we learned yesterday, you don't buy. In the beginning of today, we learned you don't buy. And the simple reason is because even though there are certainly individuals who this won't affect, and if anything, it will be beneficial to them, because they're going to pay more for Shabbos, and then in turn, Hashem will repay them that they'll get more money back. Nevertheless, a lot of people won't be able to afford it, and therefore they're going to have to make their Shabbos weekday like we learned, and they can't borrow from Hashem because they know that they can't repay it. So therefore, they're not going to be able to afford the fish at all because the fish is more expensive. So over here, there's a technical machlokas. How much are they jacking up the price of the fish over here? Is it more than 1/3 of the regular price or not? Or 1/3 of a person's assets? So they go into that. There seems to be a machlokas. The Eli Rabbah says that no, if they're jacking it up too much, just stay away from it. And it depends on the exact case scenario. That's basically what he discusses over here. Okay, if the prices just automatically went up, for example, tariffs, supply and demand shortage, whatever it is, that's not price gouging.
Inflation.
Price gouging, inflation, that's not price gouging. There's a difference between the purposely price gouging because they know, like the car wash places, they jack up the prices because it's illegal. They try stopping that already right before Pesach. Same exact thing, right? So there's a difference exactly over there. Then all the details, if you bought the fish before it was price gouged and then did, and everyone else can't have it, all the technicalities with the price gouging are certainly discussed. Okay, so I said we're going to get to it. Here we are. We said that it's even permissible for a person to borrow with interest in order to be able to afford the Suda on Shabbos. So what exact interest are we talking about? So some say this is referring to you're borrowing and it's with someone who isn't Jewish, because interest with Jews, that's going to be a problem. It could be that no, even they're Jewish, says the Caf Hachaim, it's a heter ischut, it's derech heter. You do it in a way that's permissible. Some explain this is talking about ribis, that's midrabanan, that's rabbinic. Some explain it's ribis ketzuta. I'll say right now, one of my least favorite subjects in the Torah is ribis. I would highly recommend Rabbi Yisrael Reisman Sefer. They have it across the street, and I'll go to the English one on ribis, very thorough. Rabbi Yisrael Reisman knows his stuff. Tremendous expert. He's the master in ribis. Reference that if you're more interested. If you're not interested, then only learn what you're interested about, because that's what it's about. So therefore, he says someone who guards a social distance himself from this and either get the loan through someone who isn't Jewish or through a yid, but with a heter ischa attached to it. Okay, so that's basically the idea over here. And then the next point he talks about if you need to pay someone. So that paying, the obligation to pay someone comes before Oneg Shabbos, and that's very important. We're actually going to see there's a very important ber halacha. This is more choshen mishpat, but in a nutshell, right? I personally am an employee from many different people, but in addition, I'm also an employer, right? When people wash my kids, when we pay tuition for school, right? So I'm kind of both, and it's very important that when it comes to payments, that they are made on time. B'yomo titain sachar. We're going to talk more about this. It's going to be a feisty ber halacha over here. A worker has to be paid the day that they work before the day is over, unless, in a nutshell, unless it was already calculated beforehand. The condition was made that no, we're going to pay weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, annually. Yeah, so it's all the setup that a person does. Typically, I think most people are getting paid bi-weekly. That's usually what it is. So you have to make a cheshbon, and then you have to pay by that time. And if you don't, it's really a bad thing. These are isurim daraisa that we're talking about. A lot of people, they don't realize. Look at Shin Lamed Tes in Choshen Mishpat, the Shin Lamed area, that whole area. Very important stuff. Okay, this is the laundry over here. We talked about that Maker Hadin, one should not be doing laundry on Erev Shabbos itself. We're going to learn about this more if it applies nowadays that we have washing machines and dryers, but back then certainly it implied because it was a whole avoda, a whole work to do over here. So there's a whole discussion exactly. The idea is that there's a sweet spot of doing laundry. Not Erev Shabbos because it's too close to Shabbos and it'll take away from the preparation of Shabbos, but also not Monday or Tuesday because they're showing that you're not doing the laundry for Shabbos. Rather, the sweet spot is going to be Thursday or at least Wednesday. We see from Hilchos Havdalah, we learned to go, when's the last time you could do Havdalah? Well, no, learned down from Tuesday's the last day. So we learned the whole Hashkafa that Tuesday has a shaychus to the previous Shabbos. Everything after Tuesday is connected to the upcoming Shabbos. Therefore, that's the sweet spot for the laundry over there. In our house, we do loads of laundry every single day with all the kids and everything, so it doesn't matter. But anyways, this is the story with the laundry. Yeah.
Interesting that it points out that already, you could do laundry Wednesday, but we learned by haircuts. I guess it's a different matzah because you need to show that it's specifically for Shabbos. Remember we said
Oh, yeah,
he
yeah.
didn't allow Thursday.
Correct.
Most
That,
people
that's
didn't.
okay, correct. Very important point. That's what he says at the end of this, the dot that is just highlighted the dot. Okay, thanks, Ramanya. I was about to miss that. That when it comes to this is old news from Simon Rishon that we learned. When it comes to preparing though for the actual Suda of Shabbos, and the haircuts, the cutting of the nails, the showering, that's specifically on the eve of Shabbos itself, aka Friday. So this is laundry you do before to make sure that now you could be involved with the main preparations of Shabbos. I mean, the main preparations are obviously the food. That's the main thing, right? And we learned over there, if you can't buy and cook all the food Erev Shabbos, no problem. You got to do it before. Person has to know what they're doing. A lot of Jewish homes now, you have both people that are working, depends on the job, and if it's what do they call them? Professional, or if it's more like a job which has lighter hours or not. So you got to know if you're more of a professional and both spouses are working over here, there's no way you can make Shabbos in the winter on Friday. You got to do it like how I grew up with my mother. She does it Thursday night. So you got to make the cheshbon over there. That's basically the story. One last point over here is that okay, fine. So that's the Caf Hachaim. What's this over here? Oh, okay. The mitzvah of Oneg Shabbos. We knew that there was this mitzvah. We had it as a tradition until Yeshaya Hanavi came and he based it on a pasuk, the Karasa l'Shabbos Oneg. Just like there's this is a very miscellaneous. This is the last Caf Hachaim we're going to see. This is the last one in the Sif. This is a very interesting comment that he says over here. That just like there's Oneg Shabbos with eating, with achila, so too there's Oneg Shabbos on any pleasure of the body, any hanasa guf. And therefore, mitzvah ala adam la'ande ges atzmo behanos gufo. There's a mitzvah that we should now demonstrate in Oneg Shabbos to any pleasure on our body, which is called Oneg. So the Bach says that we see that a person should be careful not to walk around barefoot on Shabbos. And he basically says, what do you mean? Even during the week, you shouldn't walk around barefoot. It's showing that you're like mourning. It's avelus. He says, no, there's an additional prohibition because of Oneg Shabbos. Random point, but it's an interesting hashkafa. Oneg is on the entire body. Okay? Any questions, comments on anything that we did here? Okay. So let's stop here. I'll say a quick thing. Stop.